Today we dive into a Japanese-inspired nighttime cityscape with some fun lights and rain animation using Procreate on my iPad. So cozy up and I'll show you how I did it. The amazing reference photos that you see used in today's video were taken by Masahiro Miyagi and sourced from Unsplash. Thank you, Mr. Miyagi, for allowing us to use your work for reference. Hello everyone, welcome back to Kozzie Tea. It's me, Rob. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. We're very close to 200 subs, so thank you very much for everyone who's joined in. We're starting off with a lantern here. Originally, I was going to be doing this just as a study for fun, but I got really inspired by it and decided to make it a video. Because of that, I decided to change the Japanese characters in this drawing to some symbols that I just made up, more because I didn't know what these symbols meant and I didn't want to use them incorrectly, because if I like do an ice cream shop and then the symbol is like beef, you know, that doesn't make sense unless it's like a beef ice cream shop, but I don't know if anybody would be interested in that. I'm using the lantern as my main foreground piece to kind of give me the direction of the piece, so now I start crafting the actual shape of the street and some of the buildings that are going to be the shops that you see later on in this video. I had some weird issues here because when you're drawing perspective of a city, you don't just want to draw the line straight up on the canvas, you want to draw it at an angle because you have that actual drawing point where the depth is there. And then I also wanted to have some people in the background later on, so I wanted to make sure there was a little bit of a gap, but it took some finessing to kind of get it the way I wanted. And this is one of those things where you have to trust the process because it doesn't really make sense until the rest of it comes together. I'm using the grid tool here in Procreate, which you can find in the settings menu where the little gear is on the top left corner. And I'm just using this to help me guide my lines to make sure everything's proportional and the building shapes are building shaped and not all wonky and whatnot. Since we're doing a nighttime cityscape, I wanted to make sure that I'm adding a lot of, lights into this drawing. I pull inspiration from what I believe to be paper lanterns from Mr. Miyagi's photos. I went on here and solidified these, so I took away that paper aesthetic, but took inspiration by it, just to make them a little bit more hardware oriented to fit this kind of futuristic look that I was going for. Now we're gonna get into some character design. I know, watch out. So we got this guy, he's got his umbrella, he's looking at the street onto the big crowd of people at the end of the block, and none of them have umbrellas, but this guy does. He's ready, because it's about to rain, I promise. Just wait for it. And when it starts raining, he's gonna have his umbrella, he's gonna be the only one dry, and they're all gonna be jealous. So we wanna make sure we do this guy justice, and we're gonna deck out this umbrella with Kozzie Tea colors at the end. I go along here, I add some more buildings. We're starting to see this street come together. The perspective is making a lot more sense. The depth perception's looking good. Everything is coming together. There's a cohesion here. The adhesive is sticking, and the foundation of this drawing is really coming together quite nicely. Now we're getting into adding some of the elements of the city itself. So I'm putting some signs on the street. I add some gutters. We're gonna start seeing the doors and the windows and stuff of these buildings come in. I add more signs and just really start bringing life to this city and this block. I wanted to make sure I could pack in as much as I could before it became too much. So it's gonna be really busy. There's gonna be a lot of signs. There's gonna be a lot of lights, a lot of colors, and I wanna make sure that all of that makes sense. So to ratio the amount of stuff with the amount of color is really important so that it's all balanced at the end. One thing I would change if I could go back and do this again would be to take some of the smaller details, decrease the quantity of them, but increase the thickness of the outline to make them a little bit more bold so they pack a punch. I think the signs look good, but some of the stuff in the windows could be a little bit better. Maybe I don't need that many things, maybe just one thing, but these are the things that you learn when you look back at your work, and as you watch over it, you figure out, I could do that different, I could do this different. So the next time you create something, you've got some more experience to work with, and that always makes the process fun, which is what AI can never replace, the process. So here in this part of the video was definitely one of the most fun parts of creating this because I really got to just go creative with the signs and all the little details. But I am basically just copying and pasting the signs over and over again and then just changing the details that are on them. This is one of those things about digital art that kind of streamlines the process, especially since I work full time and I don't have a lot of time to make videos. Being able to do stuff like that really saves me a lot of time so I can get through these a lot faster and just really focus on the creative aspect of this. So while the process of creating art is always important, sometimes the process can be a bit tedious, and using the little tools and stuff that digital art provides allows me to quickly get through some of these parts so I can get them done much faster. At this point, everything's coming together pretty nicely. The canvas is looking quite full and quite busy, and that is what we're going for. I'm making sure here to place my lights very strategically so that I know what lights are going to be blinking later on when the animation process starts. I know what colors I'm gonna use, I know where they're gonna be, so that they make a statement and they're visible, but they're not all crammed together and it's like, whoa, that's so much. And some advice from me to you, when you're doing animation in Procreate specifically, since it lacks, the complexity of a timeline like Adobe Animate or Clip Studio Paint, you can't have several layers of timeline where you have multiple elements moving at once. You have to put everything in the same frames. I know I've said this before, but to anyone who's new or just, for the sake of repeating, there's only 6 frames in my animation here. And since I'm gonna have rain falling, I'm gonna need drops of water on the pavement. Also, if I'm gonna have multiple lights moving, I need to make sure that they're all accounted for. So there's everything going on in these 6 frames, and it can be very easy to muddy everything up and to get lost. Once you start merging layers, because at some point you're gonna have to do that, it's very hard to go back at that point. So my one key piece of advice here is to duplicate your canvas. Because even if you can't undo all the way back to the point where you made the mistake, that's gonna undo all the progress that you have. And then once you start over, all that progress that you could redo is lost. So anytime I finish like a key part of my animation, like when I did the rain for this, I duplicated the canvas. And then I went back to the other canvas, I did the lights, and then I duplicated that, and so on and so forth, just to keep a copy of every stage of this in case something does go wrong. I have a copy that includes the last significant step. That way I don't have to just completely start all the way over. And this is just to cover my bases to make sure that I'm covered in case something does go wrong. If you have any other ideas on how to do something similar to this, let us know in the comments, because that would definitely be useful to know if there are other ways to go about it. All right, so now we're finishing everything up. I did exclude the coloring portion of this video because I find it to be the least interesting part of my process, but if you disagree, let me know and I'll find a productive way to include it going forward. But for now, after all this time, work, and effort, we finally get to see the finished piece. I'm super excited to share this with you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. It means more than you could possibly imagine, so I hope you enjoy and stay cozy. Today's video is brought to you by Kozzie Tea. After the video, go to kozziety.com, the coziest little corner of the internet where you can get art prints and stickers for your cozy little space. Use CozzieT10 to get 10% off your order. Thank you for your support. Now back to the video.